I'm currently in Tolupan, Mexico, where there has been a disaster concerning the Pemex oil pipeline. Pemex is the nationalized oil industry of Mexico, and right next to Tolupan is the pipeline, and more often than not, the pipeline is subject to corruption and theft, where many cartel members and government officials tap into the pipeline, drain it, and then sell the oil on the black market for a profit. Even though it happens regularly, there has never been an accident or disaster quite like this. A few days ago, a cartel member tapped into the pipeline, but an explosion was caused, and so oil just flowed all the way to Tolupan and flooded the streets and houses, and it had caught on fire. So not only was there oil everywhere, but there's also fire burning houses, burning streets, and burning people. And now many families, even though they have lived through many terrorist actions from the cartel, they are now more afraid of the future, including a local mother, Maria. Maria, a local mother of two, was born and raised in Tolupan, Mexico. She has grown up surrounded by cartel violence, and so have her children. She was also here the night of the tragedy and experienced the loss of her husband as he ran around trying to save others from the terrible fire and explosion. Unfortunately, she lost him, and she also lost her home. And now she has resolved to leave Mexico in order to save her children and in hopes that they will have a better life.
The explosion and the fire, it was so sudden. We hadn't expected it, and it took everything but my children, my husband. He tried to help other people get out, and he saved many, but he didn't make it. The fire, it took my home. It took over half of the people I had grown up with. Now I want to leave. This place isn't safe. I grew up around the cartel violence, but I thought it would go away. I thought that things would get better, but I was wrong. So wrong.
This is not the first time that Mexico has had its people plagued by terrorism, death, and violence. A few years ago, 43 students were on their way to a protest where they were apprehended by police cars and all of a sudden were being shot at. The students were very concerned and confused as to why police were showing violence towards them, because they were unarmed and they were not breaking any laws. In the crossfires, many students were killed and 43 were apprehended. No one knows where the students were taken, and they remained missing for several months. Because of the incompetence of the local government, the federal government, and the police and military, the locals formed their own police force and went into the hills and all of the towns and cities looking for these students. All they found, instead of people, were bones in mass graves. Through a foreign forensic investigation, it was confirmed that the bones in those graves matched the DNA of the missing students. It is sad to say that not even those who wish to peacefully protest can do so safely. And beginning this whole tragedy were the students' wishes and intent to peacefully protest the campaign of the mayor's wife. Through a series of investigations, it was found that the mayor's wife had ties to the local cartel, and she was also smuggling information and money to them while she was in office. It is a true tragedy that because of the corruption of the government, that the people cannot live in peace and they have to live in worry and constant fear of their future and their present, and they have to constantly worry whether or not they are safe, whether or not their family is safe, and whether or not they will live to see tomorrow. Mexico has hardly ever experienced a time of peace. Shortly after they've won their independence, the state was erupted into chaos until Porfirio Diaz took control. However, he was a dictator and very much believed in authoritarianism. But that was exactly what the country needed in order to stabilize. However, shortly after he died, he left no successor, and so the caudillos, or military elites who followed him, fought over who should rule the country. After lots of fights, they soon agreed on the sexenio, which is the policy saying that each caudillo could serve a 6-year presidential term, and then it was the next caudillo's turn. So this allowed each caudillo to take a turn as president, and they formed the party Free. However, Free was the only political party for almost 70 years, and still going on, but their rule was for 70 years. And the problem is that because no other political party was able to win an election, the country was ruled by the elites, who only had concern for their social group and not so much for the poor people who were struggling or suffered from poverty and needed the attention they deserved. Previously, elections in Mexico were illegitimate until 1994. 1994 marked the first legitimate election as seen by foreign countries. However, this victory was short-lived because as different political parties were voted into office, this led to divided government in which different branches were controlled by different parties. And this led to a phenomenon in Mexico they had never experienced before. As a result of the different parties and their different beliefs, this caused political gridlock in which nothing was accomplished. More alarming, though, was President Calderon's declaration of war against the cartels, which was meant in good faith and for the Mexican people, but which resulted in anywhere from 200,000 to 500,000 civilian deaths.
The cartels are dangerous. They're more control than the government is. They rule with violence and fear. This is not the life I want for my children. I want them to live safely, proud of their heritage, and without having to worry about such a corrupt government. I've realized that the Mexican government lacks any authority. They've always told stories about being for the people, but they've never followed through on their promises. When I think of a future in Mexico, I think of death.